In episode 2, Taissa is doing everything to try to get her mind off of the Sammy issue, the Simone issue. She's working out, she's cleaning the house. But one particular afternoon, Sammy's just back. He's standing there in her house, and he tells her that he snuck off from school, walked home, just to meet Steve the dog. Ty knows that this is going to be a big issue for Simone, so she immediately calls her up and says, hey, don't get mad at me, but Sammy walked home. And Simone thinks that Taissa convinced Sammy to do this, but she says, all right, fine, I'll be right over. When Simone eventually does arrive, though, Sammy's gone. They go up to his room, and his window's open, and they worry that he ran away. So they immediately hop in the car and start driving around trying to find him. Short while later, they get a phone call from Sammy's school telling them that Sammy was never picked up. That's because Sammy never showed up at Taissa's house. Even though she thinks he did, he didn't. It was all a figment of her imagination. And Simone once again hammers home the point that Taissa is not well. As Simone is trying to explain to her that she needs to get the help that she needs, Taissa gives her a crazy kind of look, speeds the car up, and gets in a car accident. Now, over at Shauna's house, they're also going a little bit of drama with their kids, but that's because Callie can't get over the fact that her parents lied to her. They clearly killed Adam. It's all she can think about. So much so that she breaks up with her boyfriend. Whenever she does seem to forget about it, it gets brought back up. Like when Kevin shows up at their house one day, knocks on the door, and starts asking Shauna some questions. Mainly, did she know Adam Martin? And at first she plays dumb, and then she slowly says, well, yeah, actually, we got in a car accident together, but that's about it. But Kevin brings up the fact that they have a lot of text messages between the two. And she plays it off like, yeah, I tried to get his insurance information. He ended up being kind of a dick. Callie, who's in the other room and hears all of this, decides to give her mother a lifeline by interrupting the conversation and saying, come on, Mom, we got to go. We're going to be late. That gets Kevin to say, you know what? If we have any more questions, we'll contact you. It does seem like, though, because of their history, Kevin does believe what she's saying. It's not like Callie, though, is happy with her mom. She yelled at her for lying to the police, and Shauna says, I did it for your dad. Small town like this, if people found out that I had an affair, they'll start looking at him differently. And Callie's just disgusted by all of it because her mother continues to act like she didn't kill Adam. Callie needs to talk to somebody, so she heads to the bar with her friend. All her friend really wants to talk about, though, is why she broke up with her boyfriend. But then they notice there's an older guy at the bar who is clearly checking Callie out. Her friend makes a flippant comment like, you should go, flirt back, and go back to his place. And Callie says, you know what? I think I should. And even though her friend was joking, Callie walks up to the guy and starts chatting him up. She starts flirting with him pretty heavy, asks him to buy her a drink. But it turns out the two share a little bit of a connection between them. The guy tells her that he's in town because his parents, after about 26 years, are finally separating. And he's helping his mom move out. And Callie can absolutely relate to what's going on at her place. She reveals to this guy that her mom cheated on her dad and just things aren't great at home. Callie doesn't end up going home with Jay, the guy at the bar. And it's a pretty good thing because everything that Jay told her was a lie. Jay is actually an undercover cop working with Kevin. He was tailing Callie, and now he can confirm that Shauna was cheating on Jeff. Jay wants to bring her in right now, but Kevin, who doesn't seem to be a big fan of Jay's methods, tells him, slow down, dude. You're going to screw all of this up. With all the time she spent getting rid of Adam's stuff and lying to her daughter, Shauna just hasn't had time to get back to Misty. Misty's been calling Shauna and Taissa, for that matter, trying to get in touch with one of them to let them know that it's pretty clear Nat was taken. There was a security camera footage outside of the crappy motel, and she decides to put it in that Citizens Detective blog. And no one seems to know how to hack into it except one guy. It's the same guy that was able to hack into Adam's credit cards and see that he was seeing somebody. Misty's been crapping all over his theories, and he tells her, I might have an idea, but only if you stop shitting all over my Adam Martin theories. And she writes back, well, I might have an idea too. Stop wasting our time with wild goose chases. This random guy doesn't respond on the message board. No, instead, he decides to visit Misty at work. There's a guy who comes through the nursing home with his mother, and he just doesn't really look the part. He's asking a whole lot of questions, and he decides to sneak off and covertly leave Misty a note. Although when she opens it up, it appears to be just a blank piece of paper. It's not, though. When Misty gets home, she realizes that he wrote everything in invisible ink. He tells her that the security camera was just a dummy, but there is a man staying at the hotel who has been there for a couple months. He thinks he's being interrogated by the FBI the next day, and the guy asks Misty if she wants to come along and join in whatever it is they're going to do. Misty's willing to do whatever it takes to get Natalie back, and Natalie's actually safe. She's not happy about being kidnapped and dragged to a cult commune, but for all intents and purposes, she's safe. And as for the kidnapping, Lottie explains that she was worried about Natalie after Travis died, so she had a couple of people follow her around. When those same people saw Natalie put a shotgun in her mouth, they had to act quickly, and that resulted in what looked to be kidnapping. When they finally get some alone time, Lottie explains to Natalie what happened with Travis. The night that Travis died, he had called Lottie and said that the wilderness had come back to haunt him. And he said, "I know what I have to do," and then he hung up. Lottie panicked, so she drove all night, and by the time she found him, he was a mess. He told Lottie that day that the only way to confront the darkness was to get to as close to death as possible. When everybody almost died, they had a vision, so that's what he wants to do. But Lottie grabs him and says, "Stop reliving this. You're in the vice grip of your trauma." And using the same method she did back in the 90s, she's able to calm Travis down. Lottie did ask Travis if she wanted her to reach out to Natalie, but he said no, that Natalie would only make things worse. Lottie stayed with Travis that night to make sure he was okay, but when she dozed off, Travis got into his van and drove off to the farm that he worked at. He left instructions on how to get into his bank account and also a note that said, "Tell Natalie she was right." By the time that Lottie reached Travis, he had set up a bunch of candles in the shape of the symbol and was prepared to hang himself, just for a little bit, just to get close to death to be able to talk to the darkness. Lottie tried to get him to stop, but he said, "Lottie, if you walk away, I'm going to do it anyway. So you might as well just be here. As soon as I pass out, lower me down." Reluctantly, Lottie agreed, but when it came time to lower Travis down after he passed out, the button broke. She had no way of getting him down, and Travis died. That is a pretty tough story for Natalie to believe. She says to Lottie, "I know there's something you're not telling me." And there is something that she's not telling her. It's the fact that while she was trying to get the buttons to work, she went into a trance-like state where she had a visit from Laura Lee. She got so distracted with Laura Lee that she left Travis alone for a little bit, and Travis started raising up into the barn farther. But it wasn't Laura Lee. It was a demonic version of Laura Lee. By the time that Lottie snapped out of it, Travis was high up in that barn. There was no way of saving him. So she just cleaned everything up and went home. Natalie wants to get the hell out of there and get back to civilization, but Lottie tells her, "You're not going to be able to do that. There's no way off. You're not leaving until you're well rested." So unfortunately, Natalie's kind of a prisoner at the moment. And that's how the girls felt 20 plus years ago. But the prisoners were growing restless. On top of it, they've got a little bit of a hygiene issue because somebody took a number 2 in the bucket inside the cabin. That's a big no-no, and nobody owns up to it. So tensions are pretty high because they're low on food, and now you've got people taking smashes indoors. Everybody, though, eventually calms down. They go to bed that night, and Van wakes up, and Ty's not there. She knows that Ty must be sleepwalking, so she goes out of the cabin, and she catches Ty right before she's about to walk off a cliff. Both of them are pretty terrified about what could have happened. And once Ty gets back to the cabin, she starts telling Van the last thing she remembers, which is just falling asleep. Van asks her, "Is there anything on your mind that might be bothering you?" And Ty says, "Yeah, the fact that Shauna is still talking to Jackie's dead body outside." The girls are kind of split on this. Some think that it's weird, and others just feel like it's the grieving process, and Van seems to be in the latter. Van suggests that maybe Thaisa talked to Lottie because she did help Travis with whatever he was going through, but Thais is completely against that. And not only does Lottie, she doesn't want Van talking to Lottie either. When the girls wake up the next morning, they're all going through their chores. Travis and Natalie have gone off to try to find food, and Shauna walks out of the shed, the same one that she's been talking to Jackie in, and that's the final straw for Thaisa. She walks in, and she is horrified by what she sees, because Jackie's dead body is done up, like via makeup. Thaisa thinks that all Shauna's been doing in there is playing dress-up and doll with a dead corpse. She's pretty freaked out by it. In front of everybody, she says, "Go ahead, Shauna, tell them what you've been up to with Jackie." Shauna's pretty embarrassed by this as she's being shamed by Taissa, and finally Lottie steps in to defend her. Taissa backs off a little bit but says, Shauna, we got to do something about this. For your own good, we have to get rid of this body. Shauna tries to resist, saying it's too cold to bury her, and Taissa says, fine, then we'll cremate her. And unfortunately for Shauna, she doesn't really have a lot of support in this matter, and all the girls seem to be on board with cremating the body of Jackie. It is awkward for Shauna once they bring the body out of that shed. They start discussing if it's worth taking Jackie's clothes because it is the middle of winter, and Shauna does fight them on that. Lottie does, however, take off Jackie's necklace and put it around Shauna. Right before nightfall hits, Travis and Natalie come back to see what's going on with Jackie's body. They're pretty surprised at the scene, and then someone notices that Natalie is holding something. It's a pair of Javi's pants, bloodied. Natalie said that she found them in the middle of the woods, but in reality, she took those pants out of Javi's stuff, cut her leg, and spread some blood on it so she could finally give Travis some closure. When Lottie sees the pants, she goes, no, that's impossible. I know he's still alive. And Natalie starts screaming at her to stop because she's doing more harm than good. But the infighting stops once they see Shauna ready to light the fire. She gives a little bit of a speech about how she let Jackie down, how much she meant to her, and then she lights the wood. Travis grabs the pair of pants, stuffs it in the wood, and says, goodbye, Javi. So it's a moment of closure for everybody. They then head inside the cabin and let the body burn while they all go to sleep. As the movie Wedding Crashers taught us, grief is nature's most powerful aphrodisiac, and Travis and Natalie prove that by having sex that night, not going to sleep. But while they're doing that, Travis is getting these visions, much like when Lottie touched his chest. While he's having sex with Natalie, it's as if Lottie is in the room watching it go down. He eventually does finish, and they eventually go to sleep, but everybody's woken up in the middle of the night with a wonderful aroma of barbecue. That's because in the middle of the night, there was a wind gust, and a bunch of snow landed on the body and put the fire out. For a group of people that haven't eaten in a while, this is a very enticing aroma, despite the fact that it's one of their friends. For Shauna especially, who's pregnant, she walks up to the body and says she wants us to. And what she means by that is Jackie wants us to eat her. It's not like they dive right in. They are a little conflicted, but they're also hungry as hell. So one by one, they start delicately eating the body until finally they just really dig into it. The only one who doesn't is Ben. He's completely disgusted and turned off by the whole thing. He can't believe that these girls have suddenly become cannibals. Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel and subscribing to my Patreon. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. If you left a comment, I don't get back to you. I usually don't check the comments unless they're like a super comment. Also, if you don't see the next video up on the end screen, not to worry, it'll be up in a day or two.